publicly, so I'm a little nervous. Ethan kind of blew my little speech I'd written. I was asked to come today and speak with you for a few minutes on the artwork that you see displayed around the room. Sorry. Better? Yes. Okay. I was asked to come and speak to you about the artwork on the easels you see around the room, but I decided instead to tell you the history on how they came to be here at PSU. A few years ago, a group of giving human beings of all colors and creeds, brought together by a wonderful artist and now retired PSU instructor, Asaka Samsudin, with some of the hardest personal issues she'd ever had to deal with in her life, that she found the true commitment of this committee, a time when they showed their true colors. They were not just instructors or PSU staff. They were warm, caring, strength-giving friends. And with their help and strength and occasional shoulder to cry on, she managed to not only survive the storm, but finished her second year with a 3.4. I am that first scholarship recipient, and I would like to say to those present today that I would not have made it this far without you. Thank you, my friends. There's future fundraising for this scholarship, because to this day, my third year studying at Portland State, I'm still the only recipient of this scholarship. So as the poster child for this scholarship, I also donate a percentage of my sales back to it in hopes that we can get another recipient studying at PSU in the art department. For the month of October, 50% of the proceeds of my sales will go to the scholarship in hopes that we can obtain the monies needed to get another scholarship recipient in. Art is essential to our lives. Art is an essential part of our daily lives, and if we do not represent ourselves, we cannot complain about the way we are represented. The following is a list of charities and groups I have organized, joined forces with to help the scholarship grow. Myself and 20 other local artists, musicians, poets, etc. have joined together under the names of Artists for the Community. We show at the Albina Community Bank down at 10th and Gleason in the Pearl. We just finished our season for this year, and we're laying out our program for next year, spring through fall. We hope you will join us. It's on 10th and Gleason. We each pick and choose our own charities that we donate to, and we make sure that the community awareness is given in all sorts of facilities. In February, another group of committed locals that I have the honor of being associated with Worthy Affair will be hosting their third annual Black History Ball. I'm also their web designer and a participating artist. The proceeds from these events go to local charities. Last year they donated thousands to the I Have a Dream Foundation. This year the recipient is the African American Visual Arts Scholarship. On campus I'm also currently organizing a student committee called MASC, which stands for Multicultural Arts Students Committee, with the intention of bringing art of all diversities to the campus with group shows in the park lots and on campus this coming winter and spring term. I welcome anyone who is interested in joining and participating to join us and bring awareness to art of all diversities. And last but not least, I'll be showing last Thursday on Alberta. This October will be my last one of the season. And then in February I will have a solo show at the Albina Community Bank celebrating Black History. All of this information will be available on my website for those who are interested. I forgot to bring my cards with me. And I'm done. Thank you.
So I asked Mo if she would please take any questions about her art. If there's anybody who would like to ask her about
My own journey. A lot of my favorite artists did a lot of self-portraiture work, and it's a good healing process. I also worked, I didn't mention it here, with a lot of youth and young women in a art therapy kind of manner. I found for me it's been very healing, and so it's something else that I will be doing in my future on a more grander scale as well.
You have a question, Curtis?
This one right here? No. That's mine, it's not for sale. This one, when I started it, was titled What If, and by the time I finished it, the title now is At Last. Yes.
I heard you once say that in the PSU department there weren't a lot of people of color that would model for the
Yes.
department. I'm wondering if you've been able to change that at all.
Not exactly. What we've decided to do instead is go guerrilla style and bring our own models in. So if anyone's interested in modeling, they're more than welcome. I actually have studio space this term, so anybody who wants to come in and sit for us, we're glad to have you come and help out with that.
You have a question?
What is your address?
It is continue.to the TO/Mo. Yes.
What seems to be the most difficult?
Speaking in public?
Not pretty much your art.
I'm not sure that I have the answer for that. Maybe the most difficult thing would be continuing to challenge myself. Sometimes it's easy to get caught up in what you already know how to do, what's safe, and putting myself in an uncomfortable position, and where you have to do stuff that you're not very comfortable doing. So that's what my intentions for this term actually, and I'm going to expand into three-dimensional a little more.
Could you repeat the website?
continue.to/Mo.
And what regarding like what inspired you?
That one actually, I did a smaller piece. I came across an invitation as an artist to, after the Katrina, was Project Heart, and we did four by 5 cards, and they were all put together, and it was auctioned off to help. This was similar to the design I did for that, and that's what this piece is also. This piece is called Come Together. So this was my making it larger for myself.
Is that what you said?
It is.
Talk to her about her prices before you. So you don't buy it.
Everything that actually is listed on the website is sometimes more comfortable. Okay?
I wanted to also mention she is a Portland native also. So we have 2 Oregon Portland natives here today. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome and introduce Avel Gordly to the Portland State community. Thank you very much again for agreeing to participate, and we have a big hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and you all give Mo another round of applause. I think her work is so powerful and vibrant, and the colors shout. You are a phenomenal artist, and I want you to know something. After all of these years of public speaking, I still have those butterflies. I can feel them right now, and they're about to come out of my mouth. So you're fine. You're wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much for coming and for choosing to share your time in this way. And I want to thank Professor Ethan Johnson from the Department of Black Studies for this invitation to participate in the Black Bag series. I love that, Black Bag speaker series. And I look forward to identifying future speakers to participate with us in this way. I consider it to be a rich, rich blessing to have been appointed faculty in the Department of Black Studies. This is, I want you to know, it's a dream come true for me. It's and I see my homegirl Cheryl sitting there in the audience. Thank you for being here, Cheryl. Thank you very much. I'm deeply grateful to my brilliant colleagues, Dr. Darrell Milner, Dr. Dalton Miller-Jones, and Dr. Kofi Aborsa for making this possible. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, hopefully you already know that the PSU Department of Black Studies is the oldest Black Studies program in the Pacific Northwest. You know that already? Some of you didn't know that, all right? And it is the only program to offer a degree in Black Studies. And I think it's so fitting that the program is here and that it is part of a leading, I have an office right next door. Again, I'm just still pinching myself. Before I get to my main topic, no human being is illegal, let me share this reflection with you. A little over 2 years ago, I was invited to deliver the keynote address. Evening of the graduation ceremony, I became just overwhelmed with a feeling that I was supposed to be here, teaching, serving. And at the time, I expressed my feelings to Dr. Milner about the desire to come back and do some work. And one of my heroes and sheroes, and you'll hear more about that later in my remarks. So I am here. My papers collected over some 25 years are also here, gifted to the PSU Millar Library and the Department of Black Studies. And we look forward to working with a cadre of students in a seminar to be offered next term that will continue to organize the papers, archive the collection, and I hope that some of the students who are interested in doing that kind of work are in the room. And I look forward to talking to anyone who is interested after this presentation. Also, if there are any students present today who are interested in serving as an intern in the legislature, during the next legislative session, either in my office or in another senator's office, I'd like to know that. Please see me about that afterwards. Would love to have you gain that experience of seeing the legislature up close and personal as an intern. I do hope, for those who may be unaware, that you will learn about the offerings in the Black Studies Department, which is now housed with Chicano and Latino Studies. I'm very excited about that. This is going to be, it is a great place to come and learn, be stimulated, and better understand the increasing political and economic power of all of these populations. African American, Chicano, Latino. And then, again, remember this, that Black history is American history. And let me say this also, that most of you, and I hope you know this, during your public education, the knowledge, or having the knowledge of African American history and culture. So the opportunity to connect with the Black Studies Department is so rich, it's so wonderful. It's yours. Take advantage of it. Take full advantage of it while you are here. There is a African proverb that says, "Not to know is bad. Not to wish to know is worse." Just think about that, and again, consider the opportunities that you have while you're here. Immigration is the leading human rights, civil rights, and social justice issue of our time, and I want to share a few excerpts from a speech I delivered here in the Park Blocks last spring to a mostly immigrant audience. Thousands of Latino, African immigrants, and other supporters of human rights and social justice. And so this is some of what I said on that day. I said that no human being is illegal. When Oregon's Constitution was enacted in 1857, it declared all African Americans within the state's boundaries illegal. The Oregon Constitution stated that no black person could live anywhere in this state. Such was and is the power of white supremacy. White supremacy embedded in the law. The native people who had inhabited these lands for 10,000 years had it even worse. They were made illegal in their own homes, on their own land. They were starved, decimated by diseases brought by the white settlers, and their ancestral lands stolen. This was and is the power of white supremacy embedded in the law. Moving forward in time, in 1906 and 1910, Oregon voters, all white men, voted to continue to deny women the right to vote. Women voters were illegal in the state of Oregon. In 1910, these privileged white men, landowners, specifically denied women taxpayers the right. From the beginning of statehood, a black person could not live in this state legally. Those that did so at the risk of imprisonment and worse. That was only about 150 years ago. That law stood until 1926, just 80 years ago. But even then, black people were not completely legal in Oregon. Some members of the state legislature were openly members of the Ku Klux Klan. We sit here and stand here today, physically located near Broadway Avenue Street, where civil rights law of 1953 forced these doors open to people who look like me, my parents. Such is the power of the law. A few good people from Portland and other places worked for over 60 years, including 18 consecutive legislative sessions. And keep in mind that the legislature meets every other year, so we're talking about 36 years before, 36 of the 60 years, before racial and ethnic discrimination in public places became illegal in the state of Oregon. Mark Hatfield was a young Republican state representative who claimed a place in history as a champion for this cause. The cause of human rights and social justice, and he remains one of my heroes. And I'd like you to know that an Oregon Historical Society photo commemorating the signing of the law now hangs outside of the House of Representatives chamber at the state capitol. My father, who arrived in Oregon in 1936, overwhelmingly supported the amendment. But note this, over 352,000 Oregonians voted to keep the language in, and that was less than 4 years ago. And the language in question included references to expanding numbers of Supreme Court justices based on the white population, Bill of Rights excluding Negroes and mulattoes. It's a fascinating piece of history that I hope you will, and that some of you have already discovered, and it's history for others of you to discover and understand. 3 years later, in 2005, the voters in Alabama went to the polls to decide whether to remove outdated racist language in their state constitution. These laws required segregated schools and enacted poll taxes designed to keep African Americans from voting. More than 600,000 Alabama voters voted to keep the language in, and it's still there today. Just between these two states, then, Oregon and Alabama, we can count nearly 1 million voters who apparently have no qualms about keeping white supremacist language embedded in the Constitution. According to the Oxford Dictionary and Thesaurus, American edition, a definition of Constitution reads as follows: the body of fundamental laws, principles, or established precedents according to which a nation, state, or other organization is acknowledged to be governed. So we are acknowledging here the obvious, that the state and nation, this state and nation, have been governed by some white supremacist thinking embedded in the laws, the effects of which are still being felt or experienced today. Did you know that until recently, farm workers in Oregon not only did not have the right to meal and rest breaks, but Oregon law specifically excluded them alone among all the different categories of employment from the rights that we all take for granted. An Oregon farm worker denied meal and rest breaks by an employer had no legal right even to complain, because the law specifically excluded farm workers and farm workers only. Again, white supremacy embedded in the law. I introduced a bill in the 2003 legislative session that would have removed that exclusion, but partisanship kept the bill from getting to a vote. It did not matter then that farm workers are human beings. No human being is illegal. The good news is that the Bureau of Labor and Industry Commissioner Dan Gardner took a personal, principled look at this injustice, and in February 2004, through the administrative authority and power of his office, wrote a new chapter in Oregon history. Farm workers living and working in Oregon now, instead of being treated like less than animals, have the right to meal and rest breaks just like everyone else. That now according to administrative rule. Now there is another movement in the U.S. Congress that would further dehumanize people who are born in other countries, particularly people of color, Latino, and African immigrants, people who speak languages other than English. 50 years after the Public Accommodations Law passed, 80 years after the law prohibiting black people from living in Oregon was removed, it's a sad thing to ponder the number of people who are willing to dehumanize other human beings and render them illegal in some regard. For what advantage? And through the law. In this state, there is a large group of people, well-financed and entrenched in power, with access to hate radio shows and a long history of support for causes that seek to marginalize, dehumanize, and criminalize people of color and poor people. no matter how long they have inhabited this place, and no matter how great, how honorable have been their contributions to our state and nation. Next January, the Oregon legislature will convene, and we can anticipate the continuation of anti-immigrant sentiment that has now revealed its ugliness in the campaign for governor. Instead of unifying the people of Oregon, we see language used that plays to fears and the further marginalization of people. This creates more fear. This is dangerous. This should be unacceptable to all of us. Because the divisive language takes us right back to the same language and arguments that were used to condone slavery, that were used to deny free blacks the right to live in the state of Oregon, that were used to imprison innocent Japanese families during World War II, that were used to prohibit Chinese people from immigrating to America, that were used to prohibit women from voting, that were used to deny Native Americans the right to speak their own languages, to live in their own homes, even to survive as human beings. That is the nature of the dangerous place that we are in. That place that would use the law to deny basic medical care to immigrants, that would use the law to attempt to deprive impoverished people striving to build a better life for their families of opportunities for education, employment, and of every basic human dignity. As I come to a close, I believe this is a time, as the history of our state and nation continues to be written, that we need to pause and reflect on how we got here. We can reflect on the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who spoke about power and justice. And so I ask you to reflect on the following words in the days ahead as we are bombarded with political messages from those who desire to govern and supposedly desire to be a leader or leaders of all the people of Oregon. Listen to Dr. King's words. He said, "Power is the strength required to bring about social, political, and economic change. Power at its best is love, implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is love, correcting everything that stands against love." Ponder these words in the days ahead. I thank you for listening.
Yeah, please give her another hand. I want to say that I am very happy that Avel is, in addition to the Black Studies Department at Portland State University. I have, over the last couple of weeks, just had the opportunity to talk with her when I walk by her door, and sometimes when it's not open, I knock on it and ask her a few questions. She is an incredible resource. She's an incredible resource. She has a lot to give and offer this department and this university, and I would encourage all of you to take advantage of it. Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot to give you your assignment. I mentioned to you in my remarks that legislative session is coming up in January, a critical legislative session for education, for for all state services. This is your assignment. How many of you have talked with your legislator? Oh, we have to improve, don't we? Here's our opportunity. I want each of you to make a commitment to me. Would you do this, please? To find out who your legislators are, your senator, your representative. Go on to the Oregon Legislative Assembly website. You'll find all the information there. I want you to introduce yourself to your legislators. Tell them that you attend Portland State University. Tell them you attend the leading international university in the state of Oregon. Tell them that this is a university that leads in enrollment, that this is a university that leads in diversity. Tell them that faculty salaries are too low and not competitive. And tell them that tuition is too high and that it bars access to every student who wants a higher education. Share your story. Share your story. Share your experience. Your stories, your experiences are powerful, powerful when you share them. They will be heard by your legislator. But you've got to call them. You've got to get in touch with them and let them know. Email, call, invite them to have a cup of coffee. You will be surprised at how accessible many of our legislators are. But again, your story is powerful. Share it. That's your assignment. Everybody signed up to do it? Everybody going to make that phone call before the week is out? 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 Okay, all right.
Also, I forgot I had an assignment when I was supposed to say something up here. Kofi's class, VST 202, is that right? Has a sign-up sheet, so don't forget to sign up. I also, Dalton Billy Jones wants to speak a little bit.
Just wanted a footnote to let you know that Senator Gordly was invited to join and have our papers collected and archived at the University of Oregon, which she respectfully declined. She was also invited to join and have her papers collected at Oregon State University, which she respectfully declined, but accepted here. The #1 leading institution in international and diversity and largest number here in Portland State.
Before we open the floor to questions, I just wanted to comment on a couple of things that you said. And the first thing was the idea of miseducation. I grew up in Berkeley, California, which is often thought of, and I think Portland sometimes gets this reputation too as being one of the most progressive places in the country, and politically. Right? And what that means is that this is a good place to live. And what that also means is that issues of inequality are something that are constantly, that are addressed. And I remember when I first got here, I found out I had some friends from Berkeley that were living and working here, and we decided to meet, and we met at, I can't remember the name of the fountain, it's over by the Pearl District. They have kids, we have kids, and I sat down, and I think this person would describe themselves as progressive politically. They went to UC Berkeley, they grew up in the Bay Area, enlightened views. And I remember that he asked me, he said, "What are you doing at Portland State?" And sometimes it still has a hard time rolling off my mouth, but I work for the Black Studies Department. I'm an assistant professor there. And he goes, the first thing he said to me, he goes, "Oh, we don't have that problem here." And, you know, and what he meant was we don't have issues of racial inequality, discrimination in Portland. And he lives in Northwest Portland. And the way that I understand this is that in Northwest Portland, there are very few black people, much less other groups. And the way I understand it is that part of it is the education system. You know, it is cheating people. But at the same time, and with that, when you live in a place where there's no other groups of people, it supports that understanding that there is no discrimination, that there is no inequality. And I remember my first college experience was in the Black Studies department at San Francisco State University. And it was there, you know, where I felt like I finally started to get an education. And, you know, I would piggyback on what Avel says. Take advantage of the Black Studies department. We're one of the few places here talking about issues that aren't addressed. In large part because of the relatively small population of black people. Issues of race get buried here. So what I would like to do is just, I hope all of you have some questions. I'd like to give the floor back to Avel to have a discussion with you about some of the topics and issues that she discussed in her speech. All right? Thank you.
Two books that I recommend that you read before you leave this university. Adding to your Take Your Black Studies courses, you may be familiar with these titles. Miseducation of the Negro, Carter G. Woodson. How many of you have read it, familiar with it? It's a must-read, The Souls of Black Folk. How many of you have read? That's the absolute must-read. John Hope Franklin's From Slavery to Freedom. I don't know how many of you were tuned in to C-SPAN this weekend, but John Hope Franklin was interviewed for 3 hours live on Saturday and repeated on Sunday. I couldn't get up from my chair. I think John Hope Franklin must be in his late 80s, maybe in his 90s now. Dr. Dalton going through. Again, John Hope Franklin, From Slavery to Freedom. Add that to your reading as well. But I want to hear from you. I'm particularly interested in what your experiences have been here at PSU on this campus, which is multicultural, which is becoming more diverse, much more so than I recall when I was here 30-some years ago. I want to hear what your experience is. I'm sorry. Go ahead, young man.
Hello, ma'am. I'm glad to welcome you here at Party State. My name is William Barnes, and I did my undergrad at Illinois, University of Urbana-Champaign. I've been here for 7 years. I spent 7 years in Utah before I came here. And I'm really impressed by this room right now, because when I got here 7 years ago, you would not see this. And if you did see any part of this, it would be down in the basement of this building and on the floor. So my experience has been one of improvement, although it has been slow. And if you want to put another book in your reading list, I suggest you do Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for coming, ma'am. Welcome to Portland State.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Other questions or comments? Well, again, I thank you very much for your attentiveness this afternoon. And again, while you are a student in this university, do not miss the opportunity to receive, well, let me put it this way. Remember that prior to your coming here, most of you, if not all of you, were cheated out of a full education that exposed you to the rich history and culture of Africans, African Americans. And this is your opportunity. This is your opportunity. Seize it. Seize it. Embrace it. Don't miss out on it. The professors in the department here, these are brilliant people. They're gems. They could be anywhere in the world. They are here. Take full advantage of the office. Full advantage. Again, I thank you.